Tohono O'odham Nation. Welcome to our show today. This is a brand new show, and our name of our show is
Tohono O'odham Impressions, which means desert impressions. For those who are non-members, Tohono O'odham Nation is located in the southwest of Arizona. We are the second largest tribe in Arizona, the second largest land base here in Arizona. Also the second largest population also here in Arizona. We're located west of Tucson, Arizona. We're about maybe 60 miles west of Tucson, and also we're in proximity of the U.S.-Mexico border. So we buffer the Mexico border. We got, I believe, 73 miles of a border, and but also we do have the Tohono O'odham Nation does have a website. If you're interested to look on the website, it does tell you more about what I'm telling you. But I just wanted to kind of give you a brief summary of where we're located. So if you're interested, but I'm real happy today. I'm real excited about our show, and I certainly hope it brings you more information to what's impacting the Tohono O'odham Nation, not just on the reservation but off the nation. So like I said, this is a brand new show, and we're hoping to bring you exciting information. Those who are living Tohono O'odham members, those who are or off the reservation, and even our listening audience, those who are non-members or other tribes. So we're hoping to bring you political interest, human stories, sports, among other things. And this is more of a show that I hope to provide to our O'odham members, to introduce you to guests that we'll be having on the show, some that work for the nation, that you may hear their names on occasion, but I have never seen them. So hopefully this show will give you the opportunity to get to see and get to hear them at the same time. I'm pretty excited about our show. It's an idea that I've had for some years, so it's finally coming to reality. So I'm excited about our first guest, and which you'll be seeing shortly. But I just wanted to give you a brief introduction of our show, and as we go on, we'll enlighten you more about our show. I hope you share with your friends and those who are, our O'odham members that are living in other states or rural areas, Phoenix, Tucson. There's a lot to be told, a lot of stories. So I'm hoping to bring those stories to, I guess, your television or your iPhone or wherever you'll be watching it. So we'll be having various segments throughout the year, and hopefully a steady schedule to where you can tune in. As I mentioned during our introduction, I have a very exciting guest for our first show, and this gentleman has done some really tremendous work. I'm very excited that he did accept our invitation to be our first guest, and probably some of you will recognize him, some of you probably haven't seen him, and that's the idea of our show, that if you've heard his name, but this is your opportunity to see this gentleman. I've known this gentleman for about 7 years now, and he's the executive director of the Tohono O'odham Ki Association, or housing authority here on the Tohono O'odham Nation. Here's our special guest, Mr. Pete Delgado. So welcome, Pete.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. And so we're pretty excited about the show. I want to thank you for being our first guest. I truly thank you for accepting our invitation. So, there's probably some O'odham out there, and there's probably some other O'odham out in other areas of the state, or Phoenix or Tucson, that may have heard your name but have never seen your face. So this opportunity for them to see it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit something about yourself, how you're tied into the nation.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done here at TOCA. We're very proud of that. My name is Pete Delgado. My full name is Chester Peter Delgado.
Okay.
My father is the late Chester Delgado. I grew up in Tucson. My father's side, our family is from Santa Cruz village. My uncle has a ranch out there that we actually went recently and took a look at it, that nobody's been there for a long time in Santa Cruz. My brother, Joe, some of you know my brother, he was police chief for TOPD for a number of years. I have a son, Justin, who is currently on the TOPD police force. So grew up in Tucson, went to St. John's, grew up in the 16th Street, Ajo area, and went to South Point, and then ASU for undergrad. And
Right.
well, that's a very exciting thing. And you're a Sun Devil. I know you're a Sun Devil. We're both Sun Devils.
I'm sorry, Wildcat fans, but we're ASU fans.
Absolutely, forks up. And but then I went to U of A for law school, but I still chair for ASU. I've had the honor and very humbled to have worked for the nation for a number of years in different capacities. I served at the prosecutor's office back in the late 90s. Worked for in Chairwoman Vivian Wan Saunders' administration for 6 months. Then I served for 4 years with Chairman Ned Norris in his administration as an executive assistant, and was able to learn a lot of things about the nation and the operations. And then after that, I came to TOCA in August of 2011. So it'll be 7 years now that been working here with the association.
So Pete, what district are you from?
I'm registered with Pisinamala District.
Pisinamala District.
Yes.
If those of our listening audience, those are not Tohono O'odham members or listening, or non-members listening, Tohono O'odham Nation has 11 districts, and so that's one of the districts, as Pete mentioned. But so Pete, I want to start off by I mean, we can start anywhere as far as housing development here on the Tohono O'odham Nation, but maybe I can start off by asking you about the major sort of funding that we get from HUD and how that works and how it is applied here on the nation. I know there's other funding, but maybe you can explain to some of our O'odham members that really don't understand where we get the dollars from, where exactly we get the dollars from.
Right. The dollars that fund housing here in the nation, the vast majority have come from the federal government through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We refer to them as HUD. They're federal dollars. In 1996, HUD, through legislation, was authorized to start spending funds in Indian country. There are grants that come. They're non-competitive grants. There's a pool of funds. It's about $650 million that all tribes have to share since 1996. Association receives approximately $4.5 million. It depends on different factors on a year-to-year basis, but generally it's about $4.5 million to $5 million a year that funds operations here at the association.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that today there's other major source of fundings that are coming to the nation, and but that's just one source. And as executive director, when you first came in, I know that we were met with some challenges in regards to, of course, some of these funds were meant to build homes for our members and as other tribes. Can you elaborate some of those challenges that when you started from the beginning?
Right. One of the biggest challenges that we faced was that we had a number of tribal projects that council had passed for housing to move forward on and spend dollars on, and there had been inaction for a number of years. I think we had a 9-year period with no new housing. So what had happened is those dollars are drawn down as you spend them. We had accumulated over $22 million in 2011 of unspent federal funds. And that just shows that funds weren't being cycled or used for the purposes that they need to be used for. That occurrence, unfortunately, that's a common occurrence throughout Indian country for a lot of large tribes. There's a lot of reasons why tribes aren't spending funds: infrastructure reasons, capacity, the whole stack of things, federal regulations, bureaucracy. But we've worked hard in the last 7 years to draw those down. I can tell you right now that our federal account with the funds is sitting at zero. And
That's great.
It's sitting at zero. We'll get a replenishment of funds on July 1st, our new one, but that's a big change from where we were back in 2011.
Right. You had mentioned infrastructure. I know that's probably some of the major challenge, like you said, throughout Arizona plus other tribes throughout the United States. Can you elaborate on that challenge with infrastructure?
Infrastructure is a huge issue for tribes. It becomes a detriment in terms of the cost factors that go in to be able to develop outsides. So for example, when you're dealing with the Tohono O'odham Nation and you're doing it with land base the size of the state of Connecticut, 2.8 million acres of land, vast remote areas that are not, most of the districts here are not near urban areas. Take San Javier out of the mix. And you'll see that a lot of our tribal leadership want housing to be developed in areas that were traditional areas, where running water hasn't reached, electricity hasn't reached. So in order to fulfill those desires, there's a cost that has to be borne to bring electricity to a site, to bring water to a site. One example is our development in Hanamcook in the Guachi district. That site has been in the vision way before I came to housing and most of our staff came to housing. And there was a lot of impediments. There was arsenic in the water. It takes millions of dollars to get just the electricity, the water to that site before you can even begin to build homes. And I think that's what has slowed housing to a certain extent in some cases is the infrastructure cost.
Right. You touched a little bit on funding. So, and I know that the ICDBG fund was being looked at to being removed from being sent to tribes as a source of funding, and it was in jeopardy. Can you explain to our audience on the ICBG funds and how those are used here on the nation, but also with other tribes, and some of the things that if it was done away with, it would impact the nation?
Right. The Indian Housing Block Grant that you referred to earlier, that $650 million grant, that's a formula-based. All tribes get that regardless of size, regardless of performance, unless you're at a point where you have a lot of funds stacked up and you haven't utilized them. ICDBG, in contrast, is a source of funds that the nation had not taken advantage of applying for. They're competitive funds. So you're competing against tribes all across the country, specifically within your region. Congress sets aside the Indian Country Development Block Grant as part of a larger, it's a small section of the Community Development Block Grant that goes to states. Right. And it allows us to be able to leverage our funding. And leveraging is one of the key things that the association's been working on over the last 6 years, is to go beyond those just formula dollars to seek outside source of funding. So with ICDBG, we've applied. I believe we received, I think the number is 6 consecutive grants, and I'm including in there some mold grants. But it's approximately $15 million on top of our formula funds. That's allowed us to go and do major projects, including home renovation. 24 homes renovated in the first application. We've attacked mold problem in homes that need to be renovated, and it's allowed us to move forward with new construction on those homes. And we have a very, very good staff that prepares the applications, gets everything together to be able to compete within our region for those dollars.
Right. And I know sometimes our members have questions in regards to, well, why isn't our homes being built immediately? And perhaps you can explain that there is a process to, even starting, selecting a site in one of the districts, and how that process works, and how those fundings are applied that you mentioned and used. I think sometimes we kind of think that we get these fundings and it just happens just like that, but it doesn't. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Sure. The process to get from a idea that we want to build in a certain site to actually turning over keys to homeowners, it's a long road. I know a lot of people think, "Why you just put up the home in 90 days and you're done," and it's actually it takes years at times. And the reason it does is because unlike off reservation, where a developer can go and purchase a site and rezone it, go through the county very quickly, and then build on that site from a cost if it's economically feasible to do it. It's different here. We're dealing with trust land, so we're not dealing with fee simple land. Trust land requires then that we have to collaborate with, communicate with, and work with the communities at the community local level, and we have to get their approval first. And a lot of times there's trust issues. In the past with Keek, we've moved past that. We have very qualified members of our staff who go and work with all the communities, with the districts, and try to see if there's a need or desire. So that takes a while. You have to go to those community meetings and start that process and discuss and talk, and then you get to the point where you say, fine, we want housing. Then they identify sites. And then you have to go to the sites, and you have to make sure that the sites are feasible from both a infrastructure standpoint, that there's water, electricity that's close to it, but also you have to make sure that they comply with all the environmental regulations. We're spending federal dollars, so we have to make sure that we have to get environmental clearances, go through the NEPA process, which is it can take 9 months just to get clearances. Environmental, make sure that we're not impacting any type of protected species, whether it's wildlife or plant species. We have to make sure that we're not disturbing any form of archaeological sites, any cultural sites. And so all that work has to be done. There's a number of agencies that have to sign off. That takes months.
Right.
To get to that point, and then you start the process of once you get to that and say, okay, and now you're maybe a year and a half in, and you get the checkoffs, now you got to identify how you're going to pay for it. And so you have to be able to identify grant sources, funding sources, part of your plan of operations. So we're going to build here. At the same time, you're working with those communities to identify potential homeowners and working through waiting lists to get homeowners on a list. And all this requires approval, oversight by our board, working with our legislative oversight committee as a team. And at that point, if you're using grant funds or competitive funds applications, then you have to go through that process of applying, waiting to get them. And in those cases, you're waiting for the applications to come through. That could be several months to get the award that they're done. And then at that point, you start the process of going out for bid. And then once you go to the bid process, you're looking at another 18 months for construction, just with the timeframes of going through the Taro offices and the different other offices here to go. So it's a long process, and I know it creates discouragement for a lot of our members, because a lot of them, they see outside, subdivisions go up quick, and they're like, why can't we go that fast? But there's a lot of barriers to that.
Yes, and I think the audience, our members should realize that you do work closely with the districts and the communities that you just mentioned, and they play a key role into the process of approval for finding land that you spoke about. So where's that relationship now, as far as when you first started 7 years ago to where it is now with establishing those key relationships with the district leadership and plus the district representatives, and then of course you have your legislative, which you mentioned, that also plays a key role. Then you mentioned the board as well, that where did they come in as far as the housing association?
So I think relationships obviously are a key. They're vital to moving things forward. When in 2011, when I came over to housing, I remember some of the first meetings we went to with the staff members, and we went, and I felt I already had relationship with these political leadership because of the work I had done with Chairman Norris's office, and I knew them by first name, they knew me by first name. But when it came to the housing specific issues, the response they basically gave to me was that don't tell us what you're going to do. We already heard the exact same speech from all the other prior directors.
Right. Show
us what you're going to do. And we heard that over and over again. We heard it in Hickawan, we heard it in San Javier, we heard it in Sal's community. And over time with the work of the association and all these entities who made this 7-year run successful, there's visible results. People can see the homes going up in the communities. Immediately, the plan was to address our vacant and abandoned because they already were there. We had about 80 homes that were vacant and abandoned across the nation. So we immediately went there. One of the things that we always discuss is attacking low-hanging fruit. Show some results. Go for those things that are easy to do. And so there was a number of construction projects that went out immediately, and that began that process, I believe, of building trust again, that we can, as an organization, bring results. Last night, I'm very excited to say that last night, San Javier District Council approved a home site for 12 unrestricted income program potential homeowners. Those families who don't qualify for our HUD dollars because their income levels are too high. So we're building all across the nation right now, and a lot of that is because of the relationships built and shown with the district leadership, community leadership. We have very good relationships in San Javier, here in Cells, in Guachi, all across the nation. And we want to continue to bring that. If you're not seeing homes being built right now as a community member in your district, please contact us. And we want to be able to go and work with that district leadership to bring homes. I mean, you and I discussed, past areas where we need to start bringing some homes to. So That's our goal, is to bring homes throughout the nation, not just focus in one location, one area. We know 11 districts, they all need homes.
Well, certainly it is visible, what I've seen in the past 70 years to where, like remembering when you started and where we're at now. And it's certainly, visible as far as building new homes and some of the new exciting projects that you mentioned, and which we'll discuss later. I wanted to touch on there's all kinds of fundings that I know that KIKIK applies for. It'd be competitive grants or grants that are available. And one things I want to touch on is the LIHTC, which is the Low Income Housing Tax Credit. That is used for some of these monies, and perhaps you can explain how LIHTC is being used and leveraging some of these other funds that are coming in, whether it be federal dollars or other sorts of fundings.
The Low Income Housing Tax Credit has been around for a number of years. We historically had not used that. There's a small pool of tribes who have used it very successfully. Low Income Housing Tax Credits are generated through an exemption given by the federal government through the Internal Revenue Service. They set aside a number of tax credits that can be awarded, and anytime you do a tax credit, that decreases the revenue of the federal government. Those tax credits are distributed through all the states. In the state of Arizona manages a process where it's competitive to apply. And we have a tribal set-aside in Arizona. So we compete for tax credit projects with other tribes across the state of Arizona. What those projects do is they allow developers, and in this case, Indian tribes, to build housing specifically for the segment of the population, our lower income families. Those families who fall at the 60 to 50 percentile of the average income across the nation, and provide housing for them that otherwise you may not develop because it's not cost effective. And so in our case, we've had 3 projects now that have been successfully awarded. And what it does is we compete, we're awarded as a developer, we're awarded tax credits. Well, we, as a tribe and a TDHE, there's nothing we can do with tax credits. So we trade our tax credits off. We have entered into a partnership with outside investors. In the case of San Javier, it's a $9 million, close to $10 million project that's being built. And those tax credits the state gave us to build that, we give those to our partner. It's Redstone Group, and they give us the cash back for those tax credits. The cash goes to construct the homes. It's all for the construction. In this case, in San Javier, the investor is made up. The majority is made from American Express, who's looking for tax credits from a corporate standpoint. So we have a project in the ground right now in San Javier, 38 new units with a community building, beautiful facilities, new homes that will be built there. It's allowed us here in Cells to renovate 60 of our rentals, completely redone. A lot different culture in the rentals than they were 10 years ago. It's also allowed us to build a community building, which is used all the time by all segments of the community here for meetings and classroom, for groups to come together, for bingo on Friday nights. We actually even have worship service there that's being utilized in that community building. It's a very nice facility. And it also allowed us to put in, we just opened 20 new townhomes, which is a new experience here on the reservation. So tax credits are a great way to utilize funds. It requires on our, and I know people are thinking, well, that money sounds like it's for free. There are costs that come with it. The costs associated, for example, you have to open yourself up to the state to come inspect on these projects. And a lot of times tribes, state relationships, it's a little unique. We've worked through those. So we have the state that comes down, council approved it on these projects. It also requires us to monitor those homes. It's a very high level of keeping the homes up to speed, keeping that investment. We have to keep those homes occupied. And so when somebody moves out, they're rentals. When somebody moves out, we have to move somebody in within 30 days. So our investment in that is from this point forward, it gave us capital, but our investment forward as an organization is to keep those up, running at first rate.
And but the LIHTC, I think the LIHTC is, if I'm not mistaken, has some limitations as to where you can apply those dollars.
It does, unfortunately, and I know one of the things that we've advocated for is trying to allow LIHTC to be applied across the Tohono O'odham Nation so that we could choose a location where we would build. Unfortunately, the state rules, as they currently set, require that LIHTC projects have to be within a certain proximity to amenities such as schools, transportation, grocery stores, hospitals. And so when you start thinking about that in your head, and they have to be within 1 mile to 2 miles. When you start thinking about that on the nation, that limits you. It limits you basically to San Javier or to Sales. And that's why those projects were built here. It'd be great, and I know we've discussed it internally about being able to use this to go to some areas where there is high levels of lower income families, and to be able to put housing for them there. We have not got to that point yet. We did move the state from the 1 mile or from the 2 mile to a 5 mile for San Javier, but we're going to continue to work to try to open it up so that we could bring this type of housing to other areas of the nation that definitely need this housing.
Right, and also, I know some of our members are over income, and so I wanted to ask you and touch on the a couple of years ago, I think it was, that the nation gave some funding over to the Housing Association, and which is the Unrestricted Income Program that you developed, that GIGIC developed for those that are over income, that are not eligible for lower income, some of these housing that are being built. And so can you tell us about that?
Right, and the over income program was an attempt to address the fact that we talked about the federal funds that come in. Federal funds come with restrictions also. They're meant for low-income families. And so if you're a family of 4 and the total income within your family exceeds $55,000, you're not going to be eligible to receive housing from the association with our source of federal funds. You're not eligible for low-income housing tax credit type housing. So where does that leave you? And our charter that created the ordinance that created TOCA says that TOCA is responsible for housing for all tribal members. And so we worked hard to develop a program and to seek funding, and council and the budget and finance and the housing committees were supportive and approved a 4-year program, $2.5 million a year to build 35 homes is what we projected. So $9.5 million towards that, $500,000 for a down payment assistance for all O'odham home members. If you're an O'odham member and you're seeking to buy a home, contact our office, and we have down payment assistance for that. But on the UIP side, for home construction, it was home construction here on the nation. And as I told council 2 years ago, that our goal here in the first 2 years would be to acquire sites. And so that last night, the San Javier acquisition, those 12 potential home sites are intended for those families. So we have sites in Guachi, in Hanukuk, who are, but they're there. They're ready to go. They have the land is ready and the pads are already built. And you can have a home in pretty quick time if you want to move into that area. We have San Miguel. We have 5 pads there that are ready to go. We're developing here within the next year some pads in Pacinamo, some pads in Hikawan, and we're working to also acquire some infill type properties here in Sales. If you're a tribal member, a member of the nation, and you have a desire to move back within a community, I would ask you to please contact us. You don't have to. We have subdivision style housing available in those specific areas, but if you're not from those areas, we will work with you to try to identify with that community sites where you could, we could get a designation of a piece of property to build a home for you. And the funds are there. And we also have our architecture and our housing. It's a different type of plans that we have. They're going to look different than the Nahasda homes we built. So we're proud of our Nahasda homes, but we're also proud of these homes. And come in and see us because the funds are there, and we want to be able to work with you to get you to that point of home ownership.
Perhaps you can explain what the process is on that, as far as working with the districts and apply for the dollars. Is there some lease agreement, or what's involving that?
So one of the things that was important for us to do was, in order to qualify for other sources of funding, including the 184 loans for tribal members, it required that the nation pass and secure a process to lease the land that would be filed. And so, with your direction, your leadership, and members of council, we went with you, but you did the presentations. Went to all the districts and had a process put in place that council passed for leasing the land. It's very important because, again, as I stated, unlike off reservation, where you can purchase a title to a land and hold the land in fee simple, subject to a mortgage, that doesn't happen here. The land is trust land. We talk about land assignments, and I know members think about their land in terms of their assignment that's been given to them. We had to change that nature, that we could file something with the BIA that would be legal for if a homeowner were to decide to stop paying their mortgage payment or stop making their house payments. And so the lease was the way that the federal government has recognized, and now council has passed as that legal way to be able to ensure that homeowners are going to make their payments. And if they don't make their payments, there's a way to be able to take the house back. We don't want to get to that point, obviously. I mean, nobody wants to get to the point of taking homes back, but unfortunately, there are those situations that arise, that have arisen in the past, that will arise in the future.
Right. So what can you tell our members? I know there's this unrestricted fund. There's certain things that they have to qualify for, and leasing my land, is kind of scary for them. How can you tell them that it's not as challenging, or not? And I mean, you have your staff here that will assist, but also, it seems to be they're afraid. Is there something that they can share with our members that that it's something that we can help you with and guide you through and support you?
Absolutely. And I think that one of the biggest fears that people have, and you hear it all the time in a lot of contexts, is the fear of somebody looking at a credit report. Right. Opening up and seeing that somebody maybe didn't pay their bills, or they had a car repossessed, or whatever it was. There's a certain fear of what the credit report is. What does it mean, and why do people have certain scores? And I think a lot of people also say to themselves, I won't qualify. They make that own self because they're afraid of the rejection. Right. And so you'll have a lot of people say, I'm not going to go in because I don't think I'm going to qualify. What I would say to all our members is, if you want to be a homeowner, there is a program here that you will qualify for at some point. And I put that qualification on there, at some point, because if you come in and say you have slow credit, maybe you have credit that's a little on the lower side, we will work with you It's not, no one here in this office looks at credit reports. But we'll work with you to get you the point where you're ready to go for homeownership, and we'll work with you to get you a plan. Those travelers who have come in so far into this program, we haven't had as many as I would like, but those that have come in, we've worked with them and we qualified them. And if you're not ready today, for example, say you come in and you had a bankruptcy within the last 6 months. Well, we're going to tell you, okay, we're not going to tell you go away and shame you or embarrass you. That's not what it's about. We're going to say, okay, you had that bankruptcy. Now let's get a plan here. Let's get you back, to where you are able to qualify for a home, and we'll give you a time frame. Maybe it takes you 6 months. Maybe it takes you a year of making payments on time. So maybe your credit report is that you have a whole history when they pull it. You always pay your credit card late. It requires a year of making payments on time. So we'll put you on a payment plan and work with you to get to that point.
Well, I think that's good rather than dealing with a outside entity, a bank or a finance company, in which our members can come directly here and be comfortable about asking Kiki for help, or or guide them through, or sitting down with one of your staff and explaining what's the application process and things of that nature. I think that's great.
That also goes on if we have members watching this who already have are in one of our programs now and are making home payments. Everyone here in this association knows that there's no one exempt, that goes through a time in their life where you're hit with some kind of, hopefully it doesn't happen to you, but a lot of people do, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's a sickness, whether it's a loss of job. And the message that I give to homeowners and that our staff is instructed to give to our individuals within our program is that if you hit that hard time, you can't make a payment, the worst thing you can do is avoid the call or avoid us. The better thing to do is to come in and say, I've hit hard times. And what we're instructed our staff to do is to work with those members to say, okay, we understand that. We're going to suspend your payments. It's much better to come in and say that and get your house payment suspended for 4 months rather than to just ignore and not make the payment because you can't, because say you lost your job. And now we're trying to reach you and we get a hold of you in 4 months and say you're $1,600 in arrears. And now we're asking you, when are you going to pay back the $1,600 because you never came and addressed the problem. So it's that way, and in a lot of ways, the association, we're the same, but there's differences here between us and a regular mortgage company because we know that homeowners here, for a lot of them, there's no other place to go. This is their home. This is where they want to live, and so we're meant to. We have workout plans built in on the, and that was one of the things that council, when we went through the committee, talked about how are you going to deal with homeowners who fall behind. And so everything is built in to try just not to say, okay, we're going to evict you at the end of 30 days.
Right, and you mentioned staff, and I know your staff has been out to the districts, out to the community, explaining some of these processes, and also you've created also a website for Kiki that has a lot of information on there that a lot of our members don't know about, and as far as getting on the internet, but you can't get on there, at least your staff is out there sharing that kind of message, what programs are available, assistance, things like that. I think that's always been something that is lacks here on the nation, a lack of information. Well, we don't know. And sometimes say, well, we don't get on the internet, Maybe you can kind of touch on that as far as how your staff is working with the communities and, what you're doing to improve on that kind of communication, direct communication. And I think some of our O'odham members like that direct communication rather than using their perhaps they don't even have an iPhone. Maybe you can kind of go into that.
Right, and I think that when it comes to use of technology, there are generational differences that we see. I think that even myself, our younger generation flocks to, they get their information from social media. And social media is a consistently evolving and changing type of media. So we've tried to reach out to the younger generation and those who have by utilizing Facebook. by putting posts on Facebook. By a couple of weeks ago, first time I think we did an actual live on Facebook Live. We carried the groundbreaking in San Javier, and then we carried the ribbon cutting here in Cells, and there was a lot of positive feedback from that members who couldn't make it here could actually watch what was going on and hear the speeches and feel like they're part of it. Those are the kind of things that we can do today. So we utilize Facebook. Our number one on Facebook, the number one hit that happens as far as number of likes and viewed is when we post pictures of homeowners getting their keys and they're moving into a unit. That the community responds to that, and so that's that sense of the pride and happiness for a member getting a home. Because a lot of members live in overcrowded situations, and maybe that's their first home. So we utilize those. We utilize a website. One of the directives in discussing website with our IT department was that I didn't want it to be a stagnant website. And I didn't want it to be what I call stagnant dead, is that you have the same website 4 years there and there's been no change or update. We need to continue to update with new pictures and new messages. And I know I'm sort of, my IT will give me a hard time. I haven't updated my message in a while. But we try to have on there our staff directory for everyone to see. We have contact, we have a community calendar on there. We put on there documents for the public to see, our Indian housing plan. So if you have the time, you want to pull up and see what the association, what the nation's approved for the association to build, it's on the website. Our annual performance report, every year we have to submit to HUD and to council what we did for the year. That document is on the website. Addition, our rules and regulations, our policies and procedures are on the website. So if you're a tenant or home buyer and you don't want to call our staff and you want to check, am I in violation, or what does the rule say about drug use in a unit? There's a way for you to find it. It's all posted online. Now that's that edge. On the other side, those old school type of communication, you talk about the direct ones, that's still very important. Yesterday, our residential staff was out at Law Day. Anytime the community and the district has events, we try to make a very strong effort to be there. So a lot of the district days, the members of the residential team, they're out there taking applications, meeting, answering questions, being visible in the community at those kind of district days to meet the public face-to-face. And a lot of our membership want that face-to-face interaction. And then I think the third component of that would be community outreach and community education. There's a number of events that we hold that are meant to educate the community on some of those fears that you talked about earlier. We have financial literacy classes. We have first-time homebuyer classes, and that's probably the one that we've utilized the most. We consistently have them. They're small groups. We partner with an outside agency to come, and they'll talk to you and answer any questions you have about that process of what does it take to buy a home? How is it to be ready to buy a home? And education, as you've always said to me, is the key. We have to educate our members. That's our responsibility. So I think those three areas of the social media and the face-to-face out in the community contacts and community outreach are ways that we are trying to interact here with members of the nation.
Right, and you bring up a good point as far as, if you were really uneducated about how to attain a house, I could say, how can I get a house? But I know you kind of mentioned the process of how getting land base and all the environmental process and all this, and I think it's good for the public to know that you explain that what the process is, not just me coming and saying, well, I want a house built, but I think it's good that you explain that as far as what that process will be. I want to touch a little bit on the VASH, which is the HUD Veterans Affairs Supporting Housing. Where's that program at? Maybe can you tell our listeners here or those that are watching what the VASH program is about and how the nation got involved in that.
So the VASH program has been around for a while, and what VASH says, it's Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing for Homeless Veterans. Basically what it does is the federal government through the VA has set out vouchers for veterans who don't have housing, that are homeless, to be able to put them in housing, take them off the streets, and then at the same time provide them caseworker type services through the VA. What they found, though, was over the years that many tribal veterans across the nation didn't take advantage of the VASH loan, or they didn't qualify in the traditional sense of what homelessness is under the statute, where they're on the street. A lot of our veterans have somewhere to, they don't have their own homes, but they're in a state of what we call couch surfing. So they're moving from house to house without a permanent base. And what happened several years ago is that the VA, along with HUD, determined that they should have a tribal-specific program to target tribal veterans with vouchers that were in need of housing. We were awarded in the pilot program a grant of $300,000 plus. It's allowed us over the last 2 years to house veterans all across southern Arizona, even in Phoenix. The vast majority in Tucson. We were able to hire a caseworker with a VA grant to pay for that. And those veterans, and they're not all, the vast majority are Tohono O'odham veterans, but it also is open. We're housing veterans who are Navajo veterans that are possibly Yaqui members. It's not limited to just Tohono O'odham. Right. And it's been very successful. We're looking at renewing that. The federal government's going to renew that project again. Right. And we are very happy with that because our veterans deserve, for their service, that type of commitment from their nation to be able to not live on the street or be in those type of situations. We've had some very sad stories of the state of veterans who are very proud, people. And in a small way, I feel like the association is being able to reach out and do very good things with them. So it's a program that's worked, I believe, and we will continue to keep that program moving as long as the federal government funds it. And we've even talked to the board and our housing committee about what happens if the federal government decides to defund that program. Mm-hmm. And I think once you start down this road, it'd be a program that would be continued on. Either we find another source of funding or commit our tribal dollars to continue to keep that program going because of the results that have happened.
Well, I totally agree with you, Pete, as far as our veterans being well deserving. There are past veterans, through the different wars that have. We have a lot of members who are veterans, and I think that you started participating in this as far as housing and providing those kinds of housing. And perhaps there are some veterans who don't know. And I know there was a question in regards to those that are no longer in the military. For those veterans that are out there that may be wanting to use those kind of fundings that are available, being a veteran, can you kind of explain that?
A couple things with that. One would be on the VASH program. If you're a veteran, we have had to move all our VASH members off reservation. Mm-hmm. Now that we're completing new units here, we're able to put some back here. But if you're a veteran and you're eligible for a VA type loan, we are working with the VA to get to the point. All the groundwork is done. The passing of that lease provisions qualifies for us. We just need a tribal resolution, and then a veteran will be able to utilize their VA loan benefits. Now it's a direct loan from the VA for a veteran to build a house here on the reservation, and so that's a new area that we'd be able to open up for those members.
One question though, as far as the VASH program, as you know, we have some of our O'odham members or are relocated in California and other states. Can that reach over those borders, or is it just Arizona?
Part of the problem with that would be from a proximity standpoint. The veterans who go into the program and who are paid for it, they have to have case management services. So if you're a veteran who's not within the proximity here, it'd be very hard for our case manager to be able to meet with them and be able to provide the services they need if they were out of state. What I would encourage, though, is that if you're a veteran or a family member of a veteran who's a tribal member and you live out of state and you think you'd qualify for this program, please call us, because with the contacts we have now with the VA, I know that our case manager could work with the VA out of the Tucson office to try to make calls to see, because all of the VA agencies have these type of vouchers. And so we could try to get them placed in a program if it was California or Oregon or whatever state it was in, to get that veteran helped through that process.
One of the other questions, Pete, I wanted to ask you is that what are the current construction projects that are underway, or like you mentioned, the Tohono O'odham Ki projects, what other projects are getting started?
So we have several new projects that are in the ground. San Javier, we have 38 new units that will be going up in by Black Mountain. Those just started last month, along with the community center there. So that's a $10 million project. We also have a project that will build 15 new homes. Those are scattered. We have 7 of those homes in Pisanamo, 6 of those homes in Hikuan by the Recreation Center in Hikuan. And then we have 2 homes in Calic that are going in. So those 15 homes, you'll be seeing those homes going up. Right now they're doing the excavation. They're starting in Pisanamo, right next to our existing rentals. We also have Hanamcook. We'll be closing out 10 homes that were started last year being built. And we're in the process here. We hope to have here in the next couple of months, we'll be going out for bid. And then you'll see before the end of the year, you're going to see the groundbreaking. We're looking to put up rental units, unrestricted rental units. All the rentals we have right now are low-income rentals. We're looking at a new program of market rate rentals that will be going in the Hanamcook subdivision. So there'll be 2 phases. Our goal is to build 40. Some of them will be townhomes, some will be single-family homes, but it'll allow rentals for anybody to apply for regardless of your income status. So we're excited about that, along with we're doing the work to bring a potential community center / recreation center to that subdivision also in Guachi. So that's the main new construction that's happening, happening over the next 2 years here on the nation.
Well, that's great news, Pete. This will be the last question, and maybe when you answer this question, you're going to go into and tell our members how you can get in touch with Kiki. I know that probably some of our members don't know that the awards that Kiki has received through the 7 years. Can you mention those awards that you've received?
We've been very blessed to been recognized on the state level. There's been numerous awards association received for our LIHTC project. State of Arizona awarded our project as the top tribal project. We received awards as the Toka team by Travoy, one of their awards for the projects that we've done with them. We've been recognized on the federal level through HUD for the improvement efforts that occurred within the first several years. So those are 3 of the main ones, and none of those awards would be possible, again, without the team. Right. It's all about team, from the staff, the great staff that works there, the consultants that we bring on who are our partners, to our board who sets the policy, and then obviously the oversight of our housing committee. Those 3 prongs, and I've talked about it for 7 years, are what lead to success. But beyond that, there's also the leadership at district levels, community levels, the nation's executive branch departments that we work with, TOUA. There's a lot of entities who make this possible. So we're very proud of that, but we think that we're an example of when we can collaborate together and we have the same purpose, and we move forward and just push through some of those rocky points that you can be successful. We're very thankful for that.
Yeah, and hearing that as far as the Arts Housing Association received the awards, pretty exciting news, and I believe probably some of our members didn't know that we received those awards. In ending, what can you share with our members where they can get all this information, numbers, or anything that you can share with our members?
Before we go into that, though, I'll make one last point.
Good.
And that is that we as an organization also realize that despite success, you can never ever rest on your laurels, and you can never rest on your success. Just as recently as 2 weeks ago, we brought the managers together to do self-evaluation on ways we can continue to improve.
Right.
Everyone can improve, starting with me.
Right.
to make that commitment to continue to build better housing, to be responsive. So I know if there's a member out there saying, well, I dealt with housing and they didn't call me back, or the person was rude to me, or they didn't answer my question, please let us know. I mean, we want to be educational with our staff to make sure that we're being responsive, and it starts with me and through all the staff, that we want to treat all of our members who come in with respect. And if you have a negative story, come talk to us about it. And if you haven't dealt with TOCA in the last 6 years and your still impression is a negative one because maybe you dealt with them 15 years ago, 20 years ago, come in and visit with us. Come and see what we've done to the rental area, and come see what we've done here on the facilities, and meet with our staff one-on-one. We'd love to sit down and we'd love to hear your thoughts on where housing should go, because these decisions as to where to build housing, any input that community has or that they want to discuss on housing or the way it looks or where to build, we'd love to be able to get that input either at the committee level or at our board meetings with public input. So we appreciate the community and any input they can give to us also.
Well, that's good to hear. I think that's good to hear for our members as far as that you're open to coming, create some communication. If there's any kind of problem, you're more than happy to come and sit down with you. And I know you've had personal communication with some, disgruntled, even a house attendant or rental people or things like that. And so I know that you're able to talk to anybody, and they shouldn't be afraid to come here and bring up any kind of problems or issues with their house, or any questions that you may have. Some housing that may already been conveyed, and if they have questions about that you can answer, and they don't ask, they'll never know.
Right.
So
absolutely.
And I know, Pete, that we can probably go on, and there's still the 184 that you mentioned that some of our members are not aware of, and some other fundings, the other funding sources that leverage some of these grant monies and federal dollars in combination. And I just want to ask you if you can come back again and join us, and we'll touch on those subjects. But I really appreciate you being our first guest, and congratulate you on your 7 years of success. But as you mentioned, it was all teamwork with your staff and your vision and what you've done so far in development of housing for our Tohono O'odham members.
And I thank you for your leadership in housing. We've worked together for 7 years, and you've allowed, political barriers sometimes will stop things from happening. You've never been that. You've always been inspirational to us. You've always made those calls that are necessary when we need political help, and I thank you for that. And again, I'd love to come back. I'd love to be able to bring some of our staff, because we have some very great staff. The vast majority of our staff are tribal members who care for what they do. To bring some of them back to let them share their stories of housing and what it means to them and their role here at the association, to be able to share that with you and to share with our members of the hard work that they've done. Because again, it's not one person, it's a lot of people who did this. And if anyone wants to contact housing, you can reach us here in sales. Our number is 520-383-2202. That's the main number. Just let them know if you're interested in any type of program. Just call the receptionist. They'll put you through to the department that you need to speak to. You can also reach us on Facebook. If you search for Tohono O'odham Ki Association, Matt should come up very quickly. And you can also look for us online at www.tokahousing.org.
Well, thank you, Pete.
Thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate it.
And thank you for Tohono O'odham Nation and members. I hope you enjoyed our show. I hope you enjoyed Mr. Pete Delgado here, and he's the executive director of our Kikik Association. 7 years, just done some tremendous work. But like you mentioned, take advantage of some of the things some of the programs like the unrestricted funds, and please call. Like you mentioned, he's open to hearing if you have any problems or any questions, and I know Mr. Delgado, and is willing to sit down with you. But again, I hope you we provided you some key information that you may not know, or but that's our show, and I'm glad you joined us. For those non-members who have joined us, I'm happy you've joined our show, and we'll be bringing more shows in the future of different events or different topics, and so want to share one, and again, thank you for joining us, and have a great day, have a great afternoon, have a great evening. Thank you.